Hi everyone, Healthcare System here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Sleaford Mods album, English Tapas. This is the latest full-length album from one of the UK's most unique duos, Sleaford Mods. It's been a few years since the release of one of their biggest albums yet, Key Markets, and while this record still stands as one of my favorites of 2015, I came away from this album sort of wondering where the duo was going to take their sound next. While Key Markets did improve on the somewhat rough around the edges and very meat and potatoes sound the duo was playing with on Austerity Dogs and Divide and Exit, adding some more punchy and memorable hooks, frontman Jason Williamson was making a more concerted effort to sing, taking breaks in between all of his rapid-fire vitriolic rants that were densely packed with slang and locale-specific lingo about blue-collar life and weird, odd musings about whatever. But how far could this possibly go? Because it would only be a matter of time before the sound that they were playing with would be more or less explored. If Sleaford Mods are going to continue to be interesting, change is inevitable, but what shape would that change take? And how to embrace it while staying true to the sound that brought the duo to where they are today. While English Tapas does have some highlights on it, I would say this album is the sound of those growing pains. Like the TCR EP that preceded this album last year, there are a handful of songs on this thing that just kind of sound like Sleaford Mods as usual, but not quite as refreshing this time around. Tracks like Snout and Mop Top and Dull. But then there are cuts on here where they legitimately take risks and try something different, make an attempt to push the sound forward, which usually comes in the shape of Jason Williamson singing more, doing more overdubs on his vocals, punchier hooks, and occasionally trying to write what sounds like more digestible verses, not so much just delivering this relentless flow of verbiage. And then there's Andrew Ferns instrumentals on this thing, which incorporate some weirder bass lines, some dancier rhythms, a little bit more synths, but they still have that really stark minimalist appeal that has always been pivotal to the duo's sound. Tracks like DRAYTON MANORED and Messy Anywhere and Time Sands, which throughout the instrumental here, there is sampled this persistent cricket chirping. I wouldn't say this is a redundant album, but I don't think it goes far enough, especially on the production end of things where it seems like Jason's vocals are a little unsupported occasionally, especially when he's making a bigger effort to write hooks, sing more, but when he changes into the chorus, the instrumental does very little to kind of enhance what he's doing melodically or kind of grow or swell or change underneath his voice to kind of just following along musically with what Jason is doing with his vocals. He's bringing so much energy and passion and emotion to the table on tracks like I Feel So Wrong, the closer on this thing. But meanwhile, the instrumental, while it does have a little bit more piano incorporated into it, it is a bit more melodic than the average instrumental on this record. It still feels very flat and lifeless, nowhere near as expressive as the vocals on top of it. I appreciate the Mods' attempt at sort of staying true to this very skeletal sound, but I sort of sit here and wonder whether or not it's actually serving the duo's needs anymore. They could easily stick to the same energy, the same style, while creating instrumentals that sound a bit fuller, a bit punchier, a bit more colorful, more visceral and explosive, and really light up what Jason is trying to do vocally, especially since it seems like the space is there with him toning some of his verses down, trying to write bigger hooks, like on the track Just Like We Do, or on the song Cuddly, where on this track, this is like the closest Jason has ever come to just straight rapping on a track from what I've heard. And hip-hop has always been a bit of a point of reference for Sleaford Mods and their music, but it's kind of cool to hear it creep in a little bit more in terms of an influence on this cut. If the duo's complete continuation of this very uncomplicated sound is totally fine with you, then you will most likely dig this album much more than I am. There is definitely a bit more instrumental variation on this album as compared to Key Markets or anything they've done previously. You have your typical driving loop post-punk beats that have a bit of a fall worship type sound of them. And then those electronic tracks, those dancier tracks that have a bit of a funkier edge to them are a nice change of pace. Jason seems to be getting a bit more ambitious with his vocals. His writing is still on point for the most part. Some of his best stuff is here, like on the track B.H.S, where he comes off particularly funny and very on point with the social or political message they're trying to make with the track. Unfortunately though, I still came away from this album somewhat underwhelmed. I'm feeling a strong to a decent 6 on this thing. Transition. Have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best. You're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like. If you like, please subscribe, and please don't cry. Just, you know, leave an angry comment if you're angry. Links next to my head that you should check out. Subscribe to the channel. Official website too. Sleaford Mods, English Tapas. Forever.